Welcome to our deep dive, everyone. Today, we're going to be looking at AI, and specifically this podcast called AI IRL.
AI IRL.
Yeah, it's a really interesting podcast. It's hosted by a couple of Gen Zers, and they're all about making AI work for, them, for their generation.
Yeah, cutting through all the hype,
Yeah, exactly. And we've got some really interesting sources to help us unpack this whole AI thing.
Yeah.
So we've got a report on what CIOs are prioritizing in 2024. We've got this Dummies Guide to Generative AI and LLMs, which is really helpful for understanding the basics. And we've even got this playbook for universities on leveraging AI. So a lot to dive into.
Yeah, it seems like everybody's talking about AI, but, like you said, this deep dive is going to be all about, getting into the practical stuff. How do we actually use this stuff?
Exactly. And what's really interesting is that AI is becoming like a top priority, and not just, for tech companies, but across industries.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think that's what's really important about what we're seeing here is that it's not just like a Silicon Valley thing anymore. This is something that businesses, organizations, across the board are really starting to pay attention to.
Yeah. And the CIO Priorities 2024 report actually puts generative AI at the top of the list for businesses this year.
Wow.
They're even comparing it to like the consumerization of IT.
Right.
Smartphones and apps transform the way we all work. They're saying AI is having that same kind of game-changing effect now.
And what I think is so fascinating is that it's not just these big companies that are paying attention. We've got this podcast, AI IRL, that we're looking at. And it really shows that Gen Z is already using AI in their everyday lives. Like they're using it for work. They're using it for side hustles.
Yeah.
They're not waiting for, permission or somebody to tell them how to do it.
Yeah. They're just diving right in.
Diving in. That's what I love about Gen Z. They're fearless.
But before we get into how they're using it, I think it's helpful to just break down some AI basics.
Yeah, absolutely.
What are we even talking about when we say AI?
Right, because AI can feel like a bit of a black box sometimes. What is thing? One key distinction to understand is the difference between predictive AI and generative AI.
Okay.
So predictive AI is kind of like having a crystal ball. It analyzes existing data to forecast future trends. So imagine a university using it to predict enrollment numbers.
Oh, interesting.
Or to identify potential donors.
Okay, so predictive AI is all about making educated guesses about what's going to happen.
Exactly. It's looking at the past to try to understand the future.
Got it. What about generative AI? How is that different?
So generative AI is kind of the creative powerhouse.
Okay.
It uses data to create something entirely new. Think about drafting emails or composing music or even designing visuals.
Wow.
So this is what's behind tools like ChatGPT or those AI image generators that everyone's buzzing about.
So generative AI is all about creating.
Yes.
Well, predictive AI is about forecasting.
Exactly.
Okay, I think I'm starting to get it, but what's actually going on behind the scenes? How do these AI systems actually work?
Right. That's where these large language models or LLMs come in.
Okay, LLMs.
LLMs, yeah. So these are complex algorithms that power a lot of these AI tools, especially the generative ones. And they're trained on just massive amounts of data, which enables them to understand and generate human-like text, translate languages, write code, and so much more.
So when I'm using ChatGPT to write a blog post,
yes,
it's an LLM that's actually doing the work.
It's an LLM that's doing the heavy lifting in the background, exactly.
That's really helpful. And here's a tip from the experts we've been reading. Don't assume that bigger is always better when it comes to LLMs.
That's right.
Sometimes smaller, more specialized LLMs can actually be more efficient and cost-effective, especially if you customize them with your own data.
Right. It's like having a team of specialists rather than just one generalist.
I like that analogy. But how do you actually go about customizing these LLMs? That sounds pretty technical.
Yeah, it can be, and that's where a cloud data platform comes in handy.
Okay.
So a cloud data platform is like a central hub for all things AI.
Mm-hmm.
You can securely store your data there, you can access pre-trained AI models, and you can even build your own AI applications.
So it's like the foundation for building your AI dream house.
Exactly. You need that solid base to make sure everything is secure, organized, and running smoothly.
Okay. I'm starting to get the picture, but we've also got to talk about the potential downsides of AI, right?
Absolutely. I mean, every powerful tool has, two sides to it.
Right.
One potential pitfall is what's called shadow AI.
Shadow AI. Okay.
And this happens when people start using AI tools without proper governance or oversight. And it's really easy to do, especially with so many readily available AI tools out there.
Yeah.
But this lack of control can lead to security risks, data breaches, and even ethical dilemmas.
So it's like using a powerful tool without reading the instructions first. You might end up doing more harm than good.
You could, and that's what we want to avoid. And it's not just about protecting data, it's about ensuring that AI is used responsibly and ethically.
All right, so that brings us to, I think, an important point.
Mhm.
Let's actually dive deeper now into the specific ways that Gen Z is already using AI to their advantage.
Yeah, I'm excited to get into this AI IRL podcast because it gives us such a firsthand look at how this generation is actually using AI in their work and side hustles.
Yeah, before we get into the specifics, I'm
Hmm.
curious, are there any patterns in how Gen Z is approaching AI differently compared to older generations?
It's fascinating because they seem to be much less intimidated by AI.
Hmm.
They're more willing to experiment. They see it as a tool to empower them rather than something to be feared.
Yeah.
And they're very practical. They're not interested in the hype. They want to know how AI can solve real-world problems and help them achieve their goals.
That's a great observation. They're all about getting things done.
Yeah.
So what are some concrete examples of how they're actually using AI?
So from what we're hearing on the AI IRL podcast, they're using it for everything from automating repetitive tasks to generating content for social media to creating personalized learning plans and even developing new business ideas.
Okay, let's unpack some of these examples.
Yeah.
How are they using AI to boost their productivity at work?
So one guest on the podcast talked about using AI to automate email responses,
Oh, that's smart.
schedule meetings, and even summarize lengthy documents.
Oh, wow.
This frees up their time to focus on more strategic and creative tasks.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I mean, who wants to spend hours sifting through emails or taking notes in meetings when an AI can do it for you?
Right, and it's not just about saving time, it's also about improving accuracy and consistency.
Hmm.
AI tools can often perform these tasks more efficiently and reliably than humans.
So they're basically using AI to become super efficient work machines.
They are.
I like it.
And it's not just about working smarter, it's also about exploring new possibilities. And the podcast features a lot of young entrepreneurs who are using AI to launch and grow their side hustles.
Oh, this is where it gets really interesting.
It does.
Tell me more about these AI-powered side hustles.
So one guest launched a successful online store using AI to analyze market trends, generate product descriptions, and even create targeted ads.
Wow, that's impressive. So they're essentially using AI as their business partner.
Exactly. They're leveraging AI to gain insights, automate tasks, and reach new customers.
This is really eye-opening. It seems like Gen Z is way ahead of the curve when it comes to using AI to their advantage.
They really are. And I think the AIRL podcast does such a great job of highlighting these practical ways that AI can be used to make a real difference in people's lives.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. We've talked about the different types of AI, the role of LLMs, the importance of a cloud data platform, and the potential pitfalls of shadow AI. We've also seen how Gen Z is already using AI in these really innovative ways to boost their productivity and explore new opportunities.
And I think what's so exciting is that we're really only scratching the surface of AI's potential. As this technology continues to evolve, it's going to be fascinating to see what new applications emerge and how it really reshapes our world.
Yeah, before we jump into the future, though, let's maybe delve a bit deeper into some of the specific challenges and considerations when it comes to using AI, especially for a generation that's, so digitally savvy.
Yeah, that's a great point. Let's get into that. We've been talking about all the ways Gen Z is already using AI, but I'm sure there are still some challenges and considerations.
For sure. And I'm thinking specifically about, for anyone who's just starting out with AI, it can feel pretty overwhelming. Where do you even begin?
Right, there's definitely a learning curve, and one of the biggest hurdles, I think, is just understanding all the technical jargon. Like,
Yeah.
what are these things called LLMs and generative AI and all that stuff?
Exactly.
That's where resources like this Generative AI and LLMs for Dummies guide can be so helpful.
It sounds like the perfect starting point for demystifying some of these
Yes.
complex concepts. What are some of the key takeaways from that guide?
So the guide really emphasizes the importance of data.
Okay.
It points out that, while a lot of these LLMs are trained on these vast amounts of public data,
Mhm.
their true potential is really unlocked when you combine them with your own unique data.
So it's not enough to just rely on these pre-trained models. You need to figure out how to integrate
Exactly.
your own data to really get the most out of AI.
You got it. And it's not just about structured data like spreadsheets and databases.
Right.
The guide actually highlights that 80 to 90% of data is actually unstructured.
Wow.
So things like text documents, emails, social media posts.
Oh, that's interesting.
This unstructured data holds this gold mine of insights that are just waiting to be discovered.
Yeah.
But it's often overlooked.
That makes sense. I mean, think about all the information that's locked away in our emails and customer reviews and, all that stuff.
Yeah.
There's got to be a lot of potential there.
Absolutely. Tons of potential.
So how can Gen Z actually tap into that unstructured data?
That's where a cloud data platform can really play a crucial role.
Good.
It provides this secure and centralized repository for all types of data.
Mm-hmm.
So structured, unstructured, and even semi-structured data from things like IoT devices.
It sounds like the cloud data platform is becoming like the essential tool for anyone
It really is.
who's serious about working with AI.
It's the foundation, and it allows you to break down these data silos, apply consistent security and governance policies across all your data,
Right.
and ultimately gain a more holistic view of your information.
Okay.
And this is crucial for making informed decisions and ensuring that AI is used responsibly.
So it's not just about the technical aspects of AI, it's also about the ethical.
Exactly. Absolutely. And the generative AI and LLMs for Dummies guide does a really good job of addressing this, too. It really emphasizes the importance of using AI in a way that is fair, unbiased, and transparent.
That's reassuring to hear.
Right.
But I'm also curious about how these concepts translate into real-world applications, especially for Gen Z. They're known for being really practical and action-oriented.
Yeah.
Are there any resources that offer more specific guidance on how they can actually leverage AI effectively?
Yeah, there is. We have this playbook called 4 Practical Steps to Transform Your Institution with AI. And it was designed for universities, but I think the concepts can be applied to a lot of different contexts.
Okay, a playbook for universities. That sounds intriguing.
Yeah.
How does that relate to Gen Z and their use of AI?
So while it's aimed at higher education institutions, the playbook actually highlights 2 key types of AI that are particularly relevant for Gen Z.
Okay.
Predictive AI and generative AI.
Right, we talked about the difference earlier. Predictive AI is about forecasting trends, and generative AI is about creating new content.
Exactly. And the playbook gives some practical examples of how these types of AI can be used to improve various aspects of the university experience. So everything from recruitment and admissions to student success and alumni engagement.
So it's not just theoretical stuff. It's about how to actually implement
Right.
AI in a meaningful way.
Precisely. For example, in recruitment and admissions, universities are using AI to create personalized messages for prospective students based on their interests and their backgrounds.
That's a smart move.
Yeah,
Personalization is key to standing out in today's competitive landscape.
absolutely. AI can also be used to automate responses to common questions from prospective students, which frees up the admissions staff to focus on more complex tasks.
So AI is like the super efficient administrative assistant for university departments.
Yes. And then when it comes to student success, AI can be used to identify at-risk students early on,
Oh, wow.
which allows advisors to intervene and provide support, before it's too late.
That sounds incredibly valuable. It's like having a personal AI tutor for every student.
It is. But I'm also thinking about how these concepts could be applied outside of the university setting. How could Gen Z use these types of AI in their own lives?
That's a great question.
Yeah, so the principles that are outlined in this playbook are actually quite versatile. For example, the idea of using predictive AI to identify potential challenges or opportunities, that could be applied to personal finance, career planning, even relationship management.
So instead of just reacting to situations, you could use AI to actually anticipate
Exactly.
potential problems and make more proactive decisions.
Exactly. And when it comes to generative AI, the possibilities are endless.
Yeah.
Gen Z could use it to create personalized learning materials, generate content for their social media channels, or even develop innovative business ideas.
I'm starting to see how AI can really be a game changer for this generation.
It is.
Yeah.
But with all this talk about AI's potential, it's also important to acknowledge the potential risks and challenges.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think one of the biggest challenges is the potential for AI to be used in ways that are harmful or unethical.
Absolutely.
So we really need to approach AI with a critical mindset
Yeah.
and be aware of the potential downsides.
Definitely. So one of the biggest concerns is the potential for bias in AI systems. So because AI algorithms are trained on data, if the data is biased,
Mm-hmm.
the AI system will also be biased.
Right.
And this can lead to unfair or discriminatory outcomes.
So it's not enough to just build a powerful AI system. You also need to make sure that it's
Exactly.
fair and equitable.
And that requires really careful consideration of the data that's used to train the AI system,
Mhm.
as well as ongoing monitoring and evaluation to ensure that the system is not perpetuating harmful biases.
That makes sense.
Oh.
Are there any other potential pitfalls that we should be aware of?
Yeah. Another concern is the potential for AI to be used to create and spread misinformation.
Okay.
As AI systems become more sophisticated, it's becoming easier and easier to create these really realistic-looking fake videos, audio recordings, and even text content.
Right.
And this can have really serious consequences for individuals and society as a whole.
It's like the ultimate deepfake scenario.
It is, and it really highlights the importance of critical thinking and media literacy in the age of AI. We need to be more vigilant than ever about questioning the information that we encounter online and be wary of content that seems too good to be true.
So it's not just about understanding how to use AI, it's also about understanding how it can be misused.
Exactly. And that requires a broader understanding of the ethical implications of AI
Right.
and a commitment to using this technology responsibly.
These are some really important points to consider. It seems like the conversation around AI is shifting from, the technical capabilities
Yeah.
to these broader societal impacts.
Absolutely. As AI becomes more integrated into our lives, we need to be having these open and honest conversations about the potential benefits and risks.
Hmm.
And we need to work together to ensure that AI is used in a way that benefits all of humanity.
This discussion has been incredibly insightful. We've covered so much ground from the practicalities of using AI to the ethical considerations and potential risks.
We've learned about the different types of AI, the importance of data and cloud data platforms, and we've seen how Gen Z is already leveraging AI in these innovative ways. But we've also acknowledged that AI is not without its challenges.
Before we wrap up, though, let's turn to one more source that offers some really valuable guidance on navigating these ethical complexities of AI.
Okay.
NASCOM's Responsible AI Guidelines for Generative AI.
Yes. These guidelines provide a really helpful framework for ensuring responsible development and use of AI.
Let's dive into those guidelines and see what key takeaways we can glean from them. So we've been talking about, all this incredible potential of AI, but also, some of the risks that come with it.
Right.
And now we're looking at these responsible AI guidelines for generative AI from NASCOM.
Yes.
And I'm hoping these guidelines offer some solutions for, how to actually use AI ethically.
Yeah, these guidelines are so important because they really get into, the potential harm that AI could cause. They highlight concerns like the spread of misinformation,
Mhm.
intellectual property infringement, privacy violations, and even amplifying existing biases.
Wow, those are some serious concerns.
Yeah, it's definitely something to think about.
It sounds like we need to proceed with caution when it comes to AI.
We do, but the good news is these guidelines provide a framework for actually thinking through the ethical implications,
Okay.
and they offer some suggestions for how to minimize those risks.
What kind of framework are we talking about here?
So one of the key principles that they emphasize is this idea of caution and foresight.
Mm-hmm.
So developers and users of AI really need to think through the potential consequences of their work.
Right.
It's not just about what AI can do,
Yeah.
it's about what it should do.
That makes sense. You can't just assume that AI will automatically be used for good.
Exactly. And the guidelines also stress the importance of transparency and accountability.
Okay.
So developers should be open about how their AI systems work and the data that they use.
Mm.
And they should also be held responsible for any, negative outcomes that might occur.
So transparency and accountability are really crucial for building trust in AI.
Totally.
What else do these guidelines highlight?
They also focus on reliability and safety.
Okay.
So AI systems should be rigorously tested and designed to minimize, errors or any kind of unintended consequences.
So it's not just about building AI systems that work, it's about building them to work safely and reliably.
Exactly. We want to make sure that these systems are doing what they're supposed to do and not causing any harm.
Right.
The guidelines also emphasize inclusivity.
Okay.
So AI systems should be designed to be fair and equitable, and they should avoid any kind of bias or discrimination.
That's a really critical point, especially as AI becomes more prevalent in areas like hiring and lending.
Yeah, absolutely.
We need to make sure that AI is being used to promote fairness
Mhm.
and not actually exacerbate existing inequalities.
Exactly. And I think these guidelines provide a really solid roadmap for approaching AI ethically. It's refreshing to see that these ethical considerations are being taken seriously as AI continues to develop.
Absolutely. This has
Yeah.
been such a fascinating deep dive.
It
I've
has.
covered so much ground,
We
the
have.
different types of AI,
Mm.
the importance of data, the potential of LLMs, and of course, these crucial ethical guidelines for using AI responsibly.
And it's been amazing to see how Gen Z is already using AI in these really innovative ways.
Hmm.
From automating tasks to generating content to even creating businesses. Gen Z is really embracing the possibilities.
Yeah, I think this generation is definitely leading the charge when it comes to AI adoption.
They are.
They're not afraid to experiment and, see how AI can help them achieve their goals.
And their fearlessness is inspiring. It
Yeah.
reminds us that AI isn't some distant concept. It's here and now, and it's
Right.
already changing the world in these really profound ways.
I think this deep dive has left me feeling both excited and empowered.
Me too.
You know, AI has this incredible potential to really improve our
It
lives.
does.
But it's up to all of us to use it wisely and responsibly.
Absolutely.
So as we move forward, we need to stay informed, engage in these thoughtful conversations, and continue to explore how AI can be a force for good in the world.
So what are you going to do with AI?
Yeah.
How are you going to make sure that it's a force for good?
That's something for all of us to think about
It
as
is.
we wrap up this deep dive.
Until next time.
Until next time.
Stay curious. Stay informed.
And keep exploring.
Yeah.